Welcome to Lesson 12, Cube Project. Today we are going to draw a birthday present, or suppose it could be a Christmas present, because it is a cube in real life. It's an object. So let's go over the living ideas that are most pertinent for our lesson today. We can see light and dark. And when we draw, we show highlights and shadows. Cast shadows will help your drawing seem more real. Making light marks can be just as important as making dark marks. And our last idea for today is observe how straight lines relate to one another before you draw them. Okay, let's get started. Today we are drawing this birthday present. And I want to point out really quick that last time when I drew, I didn't have room for my cast shadow. And so today, let's talk for a second about composition. Composition is the makeup of all of the elements in your piece of art. So today my composition includes this cube present and its cast shadow. If I try to draw this cube as big as I can over here, we're going to end up with no space for the cast shadow. Do you see that? And so I will not do it that way, but instead I've used a guideline here to draw myself the general shape of what I'm working with. My toned ground is a square. That will not work. So what I'm going to do is just give myself a little guide and try to stick within this rectangle instead, so that I can bring over my composition nicely. This is about the halfway point in my composition, so I can see that the cube goes a little bit over halfway. And so I'm going to go ahead and let it go a little over halfway. To begin, we're going to use dots to map out the shape of our cube. If you need a refresher on the lesson, go and watch I think it is lesson 11, cube shape and shading. Okay, so I've got my dots. I'm going to connect them now with straight lines. I am going to come back here and observe these lines that I'm about to draw are parallel to one another. That means if they went on and on forever, they would never touch. So 1, 2, 3, I have 3 of them to draw. And as seen here in the image that we are drawing today, my lowest point is the front edge. So I'm going to bring that in first until my brain can tell that's about a square. And then I'm going to add in the back one and this other side one. Always coming back to examine the relationships and see if I feel like I got it right. Observe, 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 and it will help you draw well. Okay, there is my cube for today. It does not have to be perfect because that's not why we're here. We are here to learn how to observe a shape that we've not really made in detail before. Okay, there is my cube shape. Let's see, the next thing I want us to do is the shape of the cast shadow. If you look closely, the shadow today starts a little bit under here and it's going to come out. Where's a good straight edge? You can use your tortillon too if you would like to hold it to compare where lines are. I see that this is almost a straight line. It has a little bit of a dip out here in the center. But for my purposes today, I don't think I'm going to add that because I'm the artist and I get to choose. Another thing right now I'm going to observe is this corner of the shadow and this corner. If I did a kind of a straight up and down here and a straight up and down here, I can get an idea that this corner is farther away than the other from the cube. So I'm gonna add in maybe a little dot for that, connect them with a little line. That shadow looks super long to me right off the bat. And so instead of leaving it, I'll just smudge it away about an even distance. That way I don't have to worry too much about the relationship again. And I'm gonna check again. Oh, that feels better to my brain as I'm looking at it. Okay. Now we have this shape almost, I guess. I see a shape sticking off. I wonder what that could be. What do you think is causing this cast shadow to have an extra shape on this end of it? Any guesses? It's the ribbon. Yeah. So now that we've got that added, ooh, sorry about that. I am going to fill it in. Gonna grab a bigger piece of charcoal. Oh, don't forget to tone your ground. If you forgot to tone your ground, to go back, tone it, and start the lesson over. Okay, so here's my cast shadow. I am noticing it's quite dark, as was our shading from last lesson in this section. I'm going to go ahead and soften that now with my tortillon. Notice I'm also softening the edges because that will help it seem more like a shadow, less like an object, because it's not a hard object, it is a shadow of an object. So I think that will help distinguish it, and that is why I'm doing that. Now, what is our next step? Let's go ahead and shade the shadow side. I am noticing that it's not horribly different from this side. This side of the present has a lot of shadows, and so we will get there. Let's tone both of these. I'm going to use my finger this time and see if I can achieve a slightly lighter tone. Yeah, that's looking okay to me. I'm going to look at the tone difference. Mine is not dark enough, I would say. Add a little back there. All right. This side is going to be very similar. The things that are going to make it pop are the highlights on the wrapping paper. So looking forward to getting some detail today. That'll be really fun. Details are fun because when you observe them closely and then put them in your drawing, it really makes it come to life. So that'll probably be a very rewarding section of our lesson today. The top, I think I'll just kind of go over it with my finger since I had some material on there. Notice I'm losing lines. Also notice I'm not worried about that because really I would like my background to be darker than the highlights on my gift. That will help it pop. So I'm going to come in now with my eraser and add in some definition to the top of my gift. Pause the video as needed to keep up with me. I can still see just the little the points barely, and so I'm able to follow what I did previously. All right. I am happy with that. We have a shaded cube with a shaded cast shadow. Now let's see. We didn't talk about where the light source is coming from. It is coming kind of from back and up this way, casting the shadow a little bit toward the viewer. Now let's add some folds in this side. We have the general toned ground, but now we are going to come in with details. We're going to observe before we draw. We have the papers folded down, giving us these two lines coming from these corners toward the ribbon center. Maybe I will mark the ribbon first. The ribbon is very nearly parallel to these lines. And so I'm going to add a parallel line in the center approximately. And I don't know if you noticed, did you see my arcing, my just very subtle curvature to this line? I see that. I see this curving ribbon, and that's, that helps my brain understand that that ribbon is fabric wrapped around this shape, because it has just that ever so slight bend. It's giving that extra space behind it. And I see a little bit of a similar one here. We have a shadow under the ribbon that we can add that will make it really stand out. So let's go ahead, add some ribbon guidelines. Gonna glance back and forth, see how I feel about that. I'm fine with that. Okay, next I'm gonna do this paper. One thing I noticed, this distorted edge, distorted corner where the paper has obviously folded, but not quite at the vertex of the cube. I can see that it's come down a little bit. I'm actually gonna draw now with my eraser to kind of do the same, give the same shape to that corner, glancing back and forth again. And then I'm gonna drag a lighter line toward the center ribbon there, adding in a little more highlight. Okay. Soften it. I'm not happy with how that corner quite looked, so I'm gonna bolden that edge a little, refine it until I feel that I've achieved what I was going for. That's better. Now, again, I'm gonna observe over here. This time I've decided I'm going in with the dark because what I notice is this shadow under the edge is quite dark in that corner. The shadow begins almost precisely at the vertex, and so I'm going to be very gentle as I add in shadow and try to get it almost all the way up there. Gonna just add a little and then blend it out. Okay. This line down here is nearly indistinguishable. It is very, very faint. But I'm going to give a little bit of it there just so that our brains fill in all that extra information. I do notice here that I've really lost some of the contrast. Do you see how bright this corner is compared to this corner? And then if I look at mine, I see that there is no contrast between them. Okay, so again, we're observing lines, we're observing shading. I'm going to bring in my eraser on this edge here. Why do you think this edge is getting that extra light? Any idea? It is because this was photographed on a white piece of paper, and the white piece of paper reflected bright light onto that corner. It's very near the paper, so it was reflecting the sunlight up onto that corner there. Okay, that's a little better. I'm seeing that I need a little bit more refining on my dark shadow here to kind of make that corner make full sense to my mind. Ooh, I love how that's coming together. Okay, and yes, this is how I usually end up drawing, just getting more and more and more excited as the time goes by, and I'm able to make something seem real when it's not, when it's just a flat piece of paper. Let's move to this corner. I'm noticing just a nice little dark line there, and a little pouchy fold, but I'm not gonna worry too much about the pouching for today's lesson. Gonna get in a little line, tap, tap, tap to just soften it up. And now I'm looking at, do I need to add any highlight? I see that we have this gradient. We have a dark shadow here, and then slowly it gets lighter all the way up to that edge of the fold. So I'm gonna lighten up the edge of the fold, and then see how I'm stroking upward with my eraser? It's filling up with material, so it's becoming a little less effective, and I'm able to achieve somewhat of a gradient. Gonna go work it with my tortillon. Okay, so I think I'm happy with the way my paper has folded. If you would like, pause the video now and add some wrinkles. See this wrinkle here? You would just observe carefully the lights and the darks, put them where they belong in relation to the other places, and you'll get a nice little wrinkle. This one too, this is a bigger, kind of a real, and it has that harsh line where the dark meets the lighter color. You'll get a really cool wrinkle there. I might add that because mine looks a little strange in that spot. So I'll just do like an arc for that big shadow. And then a harsh line to connect them, glancing again back and forth. And one more highlight at the top edge of that shadow to make it look like there's a ridge of paper there. I'm noticing that, my paper, generally speaking, may not quite be dark enough in certain areas, or light enough in certain areas. I think there's more contrast. So I'm gonna go in and just darken my darks for a second and lighten my lights. It's important for me to remember that this is a lesson, not a piece of art. I don't want to take too long doing all the detail work that I normally would do and waste your time. Adding a little texture with my lights. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Now I'm happy with where my ribbons are placed, as we discussed previously. This ribbon is very dark. I'm gonna make sure that I've got it nice and dark over here. And then I can see that the middle of the ribbon is actually getting a little lighter there. Can you tell? It's a shiny ribbon, and so the center of it lightened just a little from whatever light was going on. So I'm going to tap my eraser and see what kind of effect I can create to lighten it. I tap a few times with a flat edge, and then I have to knead my eraser to get it to where it will pick up material again. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna add the shadow behind it. It's just like a little line, super easy little shadow. Wow. Wow, I love that. And that was so simple, just a few little taps of this and that. And there we have a beautiful ribbon. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Oh, look, I see now that the bright white paper reflected evenly across the bottom edge of this box, but I don't have it evenly reflecting that light. I'm so happy that I saw that. Gonna lighten it with my eraser, tap, tap, tap. Good. And then I'm noticing we've lost a lot of definition. Actually, I never really added any definition into the center here. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that my folded paper lines are going all the way to the center. Okay, onto the ribbon. I'm going to define the edges of it again, kind of like drawing it the first time. Subtle arc like this. And I see the reflection on this side of the ribbon is the bottom half almost. And then this top curve has such a tiny little reflection. And so we can add those both. Tap, tap, tap. Squeeze, tap, tap, tap. Observe, and then we're going to observe the shadow behind the ribbon in this one. I do notice that the edge over here is nice and dark. The rest of the ribbon isn't super dark, but that edge is nice and dark. It's almost like the shadow is a triangle. Can you see the triangle shadow? It's fat here, and then it gets super skinny all the way down there. So I'm gonna try to mimic that right now. Grab a thinner piece so I can do some detailed work. I did blow on my drawing a couple times today, but I am doing it so lightly so as not to spit. Please be careful if you decide to blow on your drawing. Okay, the highlight on this one doesn't quite go up high enough. I'm noticing it ends very abruptly, and that is not really how it ends here. It kind of fades out gradually. I also am not loving the shape of the ribbon. There's something wrong with it. I think maybe it's not wrapping all the way under the box. So let me add a line here to wrap it completely under. I'm gonna darken that under edge as well and make it will feel like the box has weight. How does that look? That's a little better. Yeah, and this just feels a little too dark. Again, like you can sit with these details for so long and really get into them, but that's not the purpose of our lesson today. Okay, now this can get a little trickier. We are going to draw dots to estimate the crossing of this ribbon. Let's start with the right ribbon because it is going across. We cannot see its exit very well. It's behind this other bow, but it was centered when I wrapped it. And so I'm gonna try to estimate maybe the exit. I'm gonna estimate just very lightly the crossing of the ribbon. And I'm doing the same thing with the other ribbon. We do see the other ribbon as it goes over the edge. It even folds a little. And so I'm going to estimate. Okay, great, we have that. We're gonna start here. This ribbon is really, really flat against the box, so it appears to be a little narrower from the angle that we're looking at. Remember, when you draw an object in real life, something sitting right in front of you, be still and look at it from only one angle. Don't move it, don't move yourself. You will be able to observe it all from that one angle to draw it two-dimensionally. There, I'm adding this little highlight on the edge. It's a pretty bright highlight, and so I'm not sure how high I'm gonna be able to get it. I will try my best. I'm gonna add back in the edge. Both sides have a dark edge. Don't want to lose this edge of the paper. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's do this other one. This other one is raising up off the box. There's a cast shadow under it. So I am going to draw the shape. It's coming up over the edge. The top edge of the ribbon goes high. The other edge stays kind of low. And then we got a nice deep shadow under it. And the deep shadow meets up with the ribbon almost at the edge. So that's what I tried to do. I'm gonna use my tortillon to blend, to soften the edges. I see that this ribbon part is very bright. Okay. And now I'm going to add a highlight. Okay, wonderful. Now for the rest of the drawing of the ribbon, we are going to speed up the lesson. there we have it. That is Lesson 12 Cube Project. Slow down on those ribbons to really look carefully at how the tones change and the ribbon size changes. Occasionally you'll notice one of the edges of the ribbon has a line that goes in front of the other edge, and just look carefully to get those little details, and then all of a sudden it's just going to come to life.